So it seems like 2:22 is a good time to start a video. So let it dance, but it's there. Okay, so yesterday I talked about having the conversation with my mom about telling her she needs to tell him it's okay to let go at some point. It has to be okay for him to let go. It went as pretty much as I expected. Maybe not complete. I was not prepared for what happened afterwards. The bigger thing. So I go to the hospital. It was like 4:30 when I was finally on my way over there, and I had set my intention to at least make that statement, however it happened, whether it was just to her or, to her and her siblings or anything. I just knew I could not leave there without telling her that. And the entire way over there, it's like my that little voice in my head was like, yes, I'm so proud of you, doing the thing, good job, and keep going, blah blah blah. Oh man. Okay, so I get over there, and first I sent a message to confirm the room number that he's in, and the response I got was, yes, I'm glad you're coming, he could use a big hug from you. It was like, I've never had that kind of relationship with my grandparents where, they hug. I've seen them hug my cousins a lot. That's not been something they've ever done with me. And I think a big part of that is me. I'd seen my grandma hug my brother more. But they have the same birthday, so of course they've always been close because of that point. But yeah, like, she made that comment and it's just kind of like, no. I think a big part of it is I've always been really uncomfortable with any kind of physical contact with my family. And I've mentioned before that, like, when my dad has patted me on the back when he walks through, it's just like I start doing like this kind of stuff. Like, I cannot. It's like, I don't know, just something. I think it's probably about his energy, and my mom's the same way. It's like, I don't want hugs from them, and I think that's a big part of it. Is my mom has been the one that's kind of led the way on making sure I have some, like the jacked up relationship with compliments, because there's the one day that I was walking down the hall minding my own business, and she calls me to her room just to say, you're a very pretty girl, but sometimes you don't act like it. It's like, the fuck? It's like, you didn't have to say anything. You could have just let me be on my way to my room and go in there. But no, we had to go out of our way to say the mean thing. Great. So yeah, I have a very uncomfortable relationship with compliments, and I don't easily receive them. And that's a big part of why. But then, yeah, like when I got there, she even came over to this, like, I was standing between the bed and the door, and my grandma was laying down on the pull-out couch that my mom's been sleeping on because she wasn't feeling good at that moment, and my mom was sitting on a chair up on the other side of the bed, by his head. And when I got there, my grandma sat up and was like, when you go home, I'm gonna get a ride with you. It's like, okay, that's fine. And then yeah, okay, so my mom gets up and comes over to the side of the table I'm on and moves, or it's the side of the bed that I'm on, moves the table over some so he could still reach his water, but so I could get in there and give him a hug. And it's just like, no. I didn't say anything. I just, went to the chair that was kind of toward the foot of the bed and sat there, and then pushed the table back over to him so he could reach his water better. And I think he was he's never known what to do with me anyway. I think, I've talked about like that energetic feeling of she's going to be the one to ruin us. And like my mom was the one who was basically trying to keep his way of being alive and well. And so she tried to squash me as much as she possibly could, is ultimately what it comes down to. So she went back on the other side of the table, and or of the bed, and I think she kind of knew that wasn't gonna fly, even if she didn't understand it. They asked if, my grandpa had like half a cup of ice water and wanted more, so they sent me on a mission to find the nurse or tech or whoever to get him more water. So I took the cup with me, and she said, I'll just bring another one. It's like, okay, that's fine. So I took that one back, and she brought another one in. And when I got back to the room, the dietary people were there dropping off his dinner that my mom had ordered him. And he's been really adamant about he doesn't want to eat anything. I'll have like a bite of something here or there, and then I don't want it, And yesterday he, I think, probably ate more butterscotch pie than anything, since my mom had made 2 of those before Thanksgiving because that's his favorite. And then, Thanksgiving, all broke loose. So, she'd ordered him a tenderloin. He took like a little tiny bite of it. My mom had cut it in half, and he was like, I don't want to give it to her. And he was trying to pawn it off on everybody. It's like, I walked in starving, and so when she handed it to me, it's like, you know what, I'll take it, because she just had the mayo and tomato on it, which is what I eat on them anyway. So it's like, all right, so I had half of the tenderloin, and then he was adamant about not going to have the other half either, so I ended up with that one as well. And I don't like eating after people, like my mom would have just eaten the sandwich, right? So, but I was like pinching off the part that he had taken a bite out of and put it back on his tray. It's like, here, you can have the rest of your little bite or whatever, but it's like, I don't want to, I just, no, I don't want to, but I had left my water in the car, so then it's like, well, now I'm thirsty, so I went down to the dining area and got a root beer that I took back and was drinking that. And when I got back, my aunt was there and had brought some chicken for him and my grandma. And he had like a piece of or part of a piece of chicken, I think, but didn't eat a whole lot. And I ended up with fries. It's like, well, this worked out for me. Good thing I came hungry. But yeah, we actually, when my aunt got there, it's my mom's youngest sister, it felt a little better than when it was just me, my grandma, and my grandpa. It's just uncomfortable. But yeah, she got there. It was a little easier going. And then a while later, the middle aunt came back, and her husband had brought her to drop her off. And he stayed up there for a little while, and they were kind of reminiscing and whatnot. Oh, I know what. Okay, before any of the food, before I went for the water run and all that stuff, my grandma and my mom kept saying, I don't know what we're going to do without you. We don't know how to do things and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I just looked at him. I said, that's not helpful, right? And they didn't, they kind of backtracked. But then it came up a little while later and I said the same thing. It's like, that's still not helpful. So, they kind of stopped. I think they were trying to pull me in on it. And I, of course, am not going to go along with that bullshit. So, when I finally went to leave, it was about 7:30, and my grandma was, as soon as she said that she was gonna go home, he was like, "You're leaving?" And, started getting real stressed out and everything. And so, of course, he guilted her into staying. And, because my mom and her sisters were staying all night. Because I think at this point we know it's right around the corner in one way or another. So I think they're just trying to get all the time they possibly can. So the other two at least can take a break from him. Mom still won't do that. Yeah. But when I went to leave, my uncle was starting, I think he thought we were going to walk down together and we could talk and whatnot. And it's like, whatever. And I just looked at my mom and I was like, what, you don't want to talk this time around? She's like, oh yeah. And she got up and got her shoes on and went over and we walked out to the little waiting room. And first thing she does is go refill her coffee cup, which is fine. But I said, while she was there, I said, it is not helpful to keep telling him you don't know how to exist if he dies. It's like, at some point, it has got to be okay for that man to go. And no, it's not going to be easy, but at the same time, you can't live forever. And, sacrificing your own life energy all the time just to give him another day or whatever is definitely not healthy. She claimed, like, I said something about every time you tell him it's not, or you don't know what you're going to do when he goes, it's saying it's not okay for him to go. I said, at some point it has to be okay. And she claimed she didn't realize she'd even been doing that. It's like, okay. Granted, there's a lot going on right now, and she doesn't have me and my brother to give her all of our energy like she raised us to do, so we're pushing back because we've been doing our own healing, and she's not benefiting from that. So we sat down at the table and we went back and forth on that for a little bit, and it was just, I repeated that same thing over and over as much as anything, and I don't remember what the little shift was, but at one point I said, this is a codependent relationship. This is all this family knows is codependency. I said, and that is not a healthy thing. And then, of course, she does the typical narcissist reaction and just stares at me for a minute and then turns it around and says, you are very codependent. It's like, yeah, because you raised me to be. I said, I was not brought up to be my own person. I was not brought up to figure out what I want to do with my life. I was brought up to do things that you missed out on because you were codependent and wouldn't do your own thing. So, but yeah, I knew it was going to go there. Because one of the first things she said with that point was, you need to get a job. It's like, I know you don't believe me, but I am working on that a lot more than you think I am. It's like, right now, maybe there's nothing to show for it just yet, but I can't even say that's true, because like all this healing stuff that I've had to do to get to a point where I know myself better, and can make different decisions about how I want to do things, and kind of set some intentions and all that stuff. it's moving. It's making things happen. Like I can feel things shifting. And I have been receiving a lot of like cards that, like when I do my oracle, my daily oracle drawing things, that has not been going very much over the past week because there's been so much that's just exhausting with dealing that with the holidays stuff, all that crap. But I've pulled several that have talked about the safest thing to do when the ground is shifting beneath your feet is to go with it. Don't resist it. Keep moving, because, you know, that's basically all you can do. It's like, I definitely feel like there's a whole lot going on. And also, you know, some of the other messages that I've been getting are, blanked again. My head hurts today. I woke up with a tension headache after everything from last night, and not that the little bit that I've talked about so far. The patience, and then another thing is that even if it doesn't look like things are happening at the surface, trust that underneath the surface there's a lot that's taking place. It's like, okay. And when I got home, of course, mind you, I spent the entire drive home just kind of, you know, throwing out some thank yous to the universe that everything's working out for me, and that I don't know what's going to happen, but the universe has a plan, even though I don't. And honestly, I was expecting, as soon as my mom talked to my dad, you know, that there would be a conversation about kicking me out of the house. It's like, I'm not ready for that just yet. I'm trying to get there, but I'm not there yet. So, yeah, I was just like, all right, everything's going to be okay. I just need to dig in a little deeper on figuring out what I do want the next phase of my life to look like. And when I got home, my dad was sitting on the couch watching TV and playing on his phone, and I was like, well, I said, I may have just got disowned by mom. And he's like, oh. And I kind of gave him the rough overview. And as soon as I said really anything about what I told her, like as far as it has to be okay for him to go, and then, you know, the thing with the codependency, like he was chiming right in, right and left, and good, she needs to hear that, and blah. It's like, okay. And then he got all wound up and on a tangent about some stuff. It's like, okay. And then he dropped a little bit of a bomb that I'm not going to talk about on here just yet, but what he said was one of those things that it was like, I definitely don't doubt that possibility of, yeah. And then, you know, he said something about, as far as he's concerned, their relationship's basically been for a long time anyway. It's like, I just kind of sat there, was like, I don't know what to do with any of this. My head was spinning. Yeah, I was just like, okay. And, you know, after he went in the other room, because at this point I was in my office sitting on my desk chair, and he had come down the hallway and then we said something, but he went into his room for a minute. It's like right across the room from my office. And I was like, okay. I sent my brother a message. I said, we need to talk. I said, and when little ears are not around, I said, we need to have a serious conversation. And then he mentioned something that my mom had told him and told him not to tell me a few years ago. And he said he always thought it was weird that she told him not to tell me. And I was like, when he said that, I was like, why would she say that? What is the point there? And I told him what my dad told me yesterday, and he was like, the same kind of thing that I was thinking at that point in time. And it was kind of interesting because he said something that sounded like he kind of, on the things that our parents had told us, sounded like he was more inclined to believe what mom had told him, and I was more inclined to believe what my dad had told me. And it was like, okay. I said, so that's an interesting point. I said that we're both having this moment of not sure we fully believe the same gender parent as us, and being more inclined to believe the opposites. Like, that's an interesting point. And he was like, whoa. He wasn't ready for that either, because that adds a whole nother layer, right? And honestly, the comment I made to him, when he was the one that brought up the thing that my mom said again, and I was like, you know what? He did that. I'm just going to throw it out there. So I told him what my dad had said, and he was like, and, oh man, I just don't even know what to do with it right now. I told him last night, it's like, honestly, the thing with what my mom had told him, I said, I feel like that could have been deployed as a manipulation tactic, because, my brother is a very good guy and has a good heart, and I could very much see her using that as something to make him believe her more and less inclined to see her as the bad guy, kind of a thing. And yeah, so it's like my ex did that same kind of shit. And it's like I could very absolutely see that being something that is just strictly a manipulation tactic. It's like, I don't know if I believe it or not. I said, obviously, we know that both of our parents have narcissistic tendencies. I said, and, we've had those conversations along the way of, do you ever feel like we're more emotionally mature and responsible than they are? It's just like, that's sad in and of itself, but totally, oh my God, totally. But while my dad was kind of talking, like, I have a hard time looking at him when he's talking about deep stuff, and I don't know if part of it is keeping distance. I feel this is the first time I'm trying to process this component. It's like, I know that most of the time when he tries to pull me into a conversation, I will not look at him directly. It's like I just take in what he says and then choose to respond from there or not respond. There's been plenty of times I've just walked off because it's like, yep, nope, not doing with that one. But as I'm thinking about this now, I feel like going along with that whole, all my cancer placements. Okay, my dad, his birthday is 4 days before mine. So, of course, he's a Cancer too. So, just the sun, I think. Whereas I got all these deep layers of it too. I kind of wonder, as I'm thinking about it now, if my avoidance of looking at him, because he's not the only one I do this with. I think it's more people that him and my mom and my grandparents. I think it's the people that are trying to drag me into their drama. I try to stay removed from it by not making eye contact. My mom, I will usually make eye contact with her, and it's usually the look of, I know you're full of shit. And honestly, I feel like that's a part of that whole dynamic too. Like, when I was in high school, like my whole life, my mom has very much been involved with trying to live vicariously through me, trying to make me into the child that she wished she could have been ultimately. But because she was yielding to my grandfather's toxic tendencies, she didn't get a chance to be or do or have, and so I feel like she's trying to make me into something else. And like, I've always felt that. In high school, it felt like she got involved with the band stuff because it gave her the opportunity to do something she hadn't had the opportunity to do. Now, granted, she could have been in band if she'd wanted to, I'm sure. But, she used to make a big joke when anybody would talk about me doing band stuff, and they would ask her where I got it from or whatever, and she'd be like, well, it wasn't me, I play a mean radio. And it's like, that just felt like she was trying to be cute and funny, and it was just always just, ugh, I didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable, and it felt very disingenuous, I think, is the bigger thing. And we used to clash a lot, and I think that is a big part of where, like, the randomly walking down the hallway to get an insult or a backhanded compliment, I think that was the point of those moments, was because she knew that I could see she was full of shit, but wasn't really sure how to do anything about it. It's like, I couldn't do anything about it because she was my mom, I was the kid. It's like, so, man. My brother, when I told him what my dad had said to me, he was like, are you sure that's not just the Jones temper? I was like, tell me more what you mean. And what he posed was, it sounded like maybe Dad's temper made him have this idea that something, whatever it was, and made something of it that it wasn't. And it's like, I don't feel like that's the case, honestly. And I was just walking the dogs. It's like 30 degrees out. Ziva's got her little shirt on. We were walking. It was just under 3/4 of a mile. I think that's the most we'll do when it's this kind of cold. And yeah, they kept pulling me along today because there's lots of raccoon poop out there. I've noticed, like, we'd start moving fast. It's like, where are we going? What are we on the scent of? And then we'd stop by a pile of raccoon poop. It's like, oh, great. And like, they did that several times because, of course, everything's died off at this point and brown and crispy. So they were just like, ooh, what's this? And latching onto all the smells. But when I was walking, actually before that, I sent my 2 friends from Derby a message. I was like, y'all. Like, first I said last night that I had a conversation with my mom and I might be disowned. And they're like, okay. So I told them what had happened, but I hadn't gotten to the part with what my dad had said after that. And it's like, he wasn't there when I had that conversation. He was at home. So I just told them the part with my mom, and then I was talking to my brother and my cousin about all of it, and just like, my head is spinning, and I don't know what to do with anything. And my cousin was just like, wow. It's just like, so, yeah, it's just, wow. Oh my God. But then, this morning I realized I hadn't told them the rest of that. So I told them, and then when I got over to, actually, I think before we left the driveway, I had the dogs in the car, and we sat in the car for a minute, and I was processing them because we were processing something and having a conversation with them. And I was like, I feel, and I get the sense from my dad and now from my grandfather, my dad's dad, looking back. They talk about, like, the family, it kind of has always mentioned the Jones temper, like it's just this big, horrible, ugly thing. I said, it's not. It's like, it's basically a reaction to, there's a bunch of shit going on and I don't feel like I can do anything about it. And granted, it is not a healthy coping mechanism, but it is a coping mechanism all the same. And that was what I told them. It's like, I said, so it's like there's legitimately a problem, but they feel powerless to do anything about it, so it comes out in anger. And I get that. I've been there more than a time or two myself. And I've seen it with my brother, and when he mentioned the temper thing last night, it's like, I don't think that's what this is. And it's like, this part of that process is just now hitting me. So it's just like, because the biggest thing is, okay, I told them, it's like, there was a time when, okay, I don't know, when we were growing up at some point, my dad used, like, the phone, one of those that had the cord on it, and it was hooked up to the wall. He got pissed about something and, like, smacked it against the wall real hard and put a hole in the wall. And then, obviously, he had to fix that, and another time, he did something with punching a hole in the laundry room wall. I don't remember the story on that one. But then in high school, my brother kicked a hole in the bathroom cabinet at one point, and I was in middle school when I kicked a hole in the wall. And so my mom always used that kind of against us. And, oh, that's the Jones temper, and the thing was, when I kicked the hole in the wall in middle school, we were all getting ready to go to the local mall that is now completely run down piece of shit, but used to have a few good stores in it. And oh man, we're staying, sorry. I was mad at my mom, and they ended up leaving, and I just decided I wasn't going to go. And then I kicked a hole in a wall, and then they came back for something before they got out of the long driveway. I was like, then I felt bad. It's like, then I'm going to be in trouble. It's like, oh no, what do we do? And I don't remember what they came back to do, but I ended up going with them and kind of having a little meltdown because I kicked a hole in the wall. It's like, oh, by the way, it's like, I'm probably going to get in trouble. But I think at that point, my dad and my brother had both already done, their stunts. Tazzy, please stop. And so it was just written off as a Jones temper thing. It was like, I was mad at her. I remember that. I don't remember why, but I was really, really mad at her. And that was what did it. I just happened to have I don't know, like hiking boots or something on. I don't remember it, but I like kicked hard and right through that wall. It's like, oops. I mean, it wasn't a big hole, and it was low to the ground, and it was in the hallway. But it's like, it's noticeable. It was definitely not going to get overlooked. So, like, I couldn't just put anything in front of it. So, yeah. But, yeah, I was, like, just dealing with that today. It's like, that's a whole thing now. It's like, what if everything that I thought was real wasn't actually real? And I always knew, like, their connection wasn't a good one. And my mom will test. I hope that impressive fart was caught on here, to be honest. This dog, when he bends in the middle, like, always squishes the air out of his system or something. And it's just like, what the hell is your problem? Yeah. Anyway. Oh, what was I saying? But like, there have been, like, there was one time back earlier in the fall, that my mom decided she wanted to go to a little local ice cream shop and get some ice cream. So I was like, I'm always down for ice cream. I love that ice cream from there, so it's good. So, we went, my dad went with us, and, we went over there into town, got the ice cream, came back, and decided, I think we had got a couple things for my grandparents, maybe it was in the summer, probably the start of August, before, my grandpa fell and all hell broke loose. We're sitting in the driveway getting ready to go over there, I think. Or, no, we didn't get ice cream. Otherwise, we would have eaten it over there. We did get ice cream for us. We didn't get ice cream for them. But my mom had something else she thought we needed to take over there to them. And decided we'd just eat the ice cream in the car and then drive over there to take what we had to drop off. And my dad, was watching his stuff. He got out of the car and went in the house for a minute and was watching stuff on YouTube. And my mom and I were just sitting there listening to the music that hadn't shut off yet. And my dad comes back out and shows my mom something, and it was like a really bigoted thing. And I was just like, he made a comment that was like that, and I was like, wow, bigoted much, or something like that. And he got pissed and stormed off. And then my mom was just like, he is your father, and I have come to accept him as he is. Like, she's doing this big amazing thing, and I was like, wow, well, enjoy. It's like, because I've made comments on here before, it's like, what I've seen of them both, I'm confident I don't want them at my next wedding, and there's a good chance I won't want them involved with any kids that I might have, because I know how they are, and I've seen how he is when Gracie is around. My mom too, differently, but still kind of sketchy. It's like, I don't want my kids around that, and I feel like when I put those comments out there in this space, it was helpful for me to really accept it in myself that it was a thing that I was legitimately concerned about, because I was just, no, I don't want to perpetuate that in any way, even if it's just through, oh, hey, can you watch the kids, and then come back and find out that they've said or done something stupid, it's like I trust very much that they would say and do the stupid things that I don't want any part of. So there's a good chance, I've said many times, like, when I'm done, I'm done. I don't know that I'll be back here. And, my cousin was like, ever? I was like, maybe. Like, you're going to do like Josh did? It's like, maybe. I was like, I'm about there. Honestly, at this point, I completely respect where he's at and how he got there. He's got the grounded or more earthy Taurus energy, which, granted, a little bullheaded, but still, knows he's been treated not nicely, and why would you want to be around that anymore? So, yeah, he just got the earth. I got all the water. And, no earth. So, I gotta go, get it drug all the way through all the ickiness and figure it out the hard way, kind of a thing, and not even know what I'm working to figure out at times. Because it's all that 12th house placements. It's like, So, yeah. But now I'm looking at everything. It's like she has kept saying she doesn't know what they're gonna do when he's gone, kind of stuff. It's like, we'll have to figure it out, obviously, because it's something new. Nobody's been through that. But at the same time, it has got to be okay for him to let go at some point, because I said, the video yesterday, not dying is not the same thing as living. And he's very much just in a void right now and can't die, but also can't live because his body is about done, God. This is just a hot mess. And I just really, after what I got hit with yesterday, it's just like, I feel like if my dad had pushed back when I was growing up, rather than just being a doormat, I would have had a lot more respect for him. And honestly, at some point, okay, this is fucked up too. Every time we used to go out to my dad's family for a birthday or something, there was always a fight on the way over there. And, my parents would just get into a really ugly fight. And at one point, I remember me and my brother, I was probably around 8. I might as well just roll with 8, because that's about when everything went to shit. So, I remember my brother and I were in the back of the car, and we were talking about, if they get a divorce, who would you live with? And kind of going back and forth on that. And it's like, I felt at that point like that was a very real possibility. And honestly, I feel like it probably should have been. I've said many times, there is not a single relationship in the family that I would want to model my own after. And that in and of itself is sad, I think. But just seeing how miserable everybody is, and everybody, okay, maybe not everybody being entirely miserable as what I grew up in, but it's like, none of these are really healthy. Some of them work better than others, but there's still something that's not completely right about them. And what do you do with that? At that point, I have not shied away from in my lifetime. And especially like with my parents, even, it's like, this isn't healthy. Nothing about this is healthy. And you're doing it. Why? Just because you have kids and you think it's better to stay together because it's better than divorce or whatever, which there again goes back into that me knowing from an early age that I was going to be the one that had to get a divorce to show it's not the end of the world, I think. Not that I would wish that on anybody by any means, but at the same time, I don't know, I've heard somebody say once something to the effect of, you shouldn't be forever confined to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. It's like, that's very true. And, you know, like, the relationships I've had in my own life, you know, okay, the first two were about 4 years in length. And then when I got married, definitely jumped into that way too quick because, like I said, I felt like shit about myself, and didn't know what to do with anything. And so it seemed like that was just the next logical step, was to find somebody to marry, right? Because that was basically what I was raised in. My mom got married a few weeks before, like, I'd say probably 3 weeks before she graduated high school. And my grandparents, I don't know where they were on the school end of things, but that whole situation never set right with me either. Like, that was one of those things where, ruin the family right here. They got married on April 24th, and December 4th had my mom. So it was one of those, got pregnant, got to push the marriage as quick as possible so nobody thinks we were doing the wrong thing. And then that was like a whole big thing when my cousins and I were like, wait a second. Grandma and Grandpa were doing what they shouldn't have been doing. And they were embarrassed. And it's like, dude. And it's funny because my cousin that doesn't talk to everybody or to anybody hardly at all anymore, he was like late to the party on that one because I don't think he was there for that. He randomly called me at one point and was like, did you know this? It's like, we just had this conversation not that long ago where we all actually finally did the math. He was like, I kind of want to say congratulations to them. I feel like I've learned something like really big about them now. It's like, hey, they're not so, so good as they would want you to think, I guess. But yeah, they were really embarrassed when we all found that out. It's like, it was just a matter of time before somebody did the math on that. But then somebody did the math on it. It's like, yeah, I see what you did there. But yeah, like, that whole thing too, especially, I think my grandparents, was like, their whole friend group, I think my grandpa had gone out with. And my grandma was the last of them, and then they got married. But then they got married because she got pregnant. It's like, first off, the fact that you were the last choice there is a bigger problem to me. I would see that he's dating everybody in this friend group and be like, screw you, no way. But she did not. But I mean, granted, different life experiences and different paths, so yeah. But man, like, that was always the big thing to me, and I made a comment to her about that around I think probably he got the Rona when that was a big thing, and was in the hospital for a couple weeks, I think. I'm not going to swear to that time frame, but he was there by himself. The only reason anything really worked out for him was my aunt that worked at that hospital as a nurse was able to go pop in here and there for like very short spans of time to check on him. But that was literally the only visitor he was allowed. So that was a whole thing. But I ended up going to hang out with my grandma quite a bit that week, or two, or however long it was. I know my mom had got her... My grandma's always been into puzzles. And, she has a little puzzle table that she would keep in front of the window. And it wasn't a big table, so she could only do like 750 pieces or less, until my cousin got her one of those puzzle tables that has the drawers that pull out with the extra for the pieces. But this one was really long, and it was 1,000 pieces. It's like, well, he's not here. We could do this on the kitchen table, and it was all brown and white. It's like, this is not my favorite puzzle that I've ever done. I mean, granted, it was also John Wayne, and I'm not big into the whole cowboy thing either. Like, that was, of course, my grandpa just absolutely loved John Wayne, and then the fact that his name was Don and his middle name's Wayne, Don Wayne, yep, that was the whole thing too. So they always made a big joke out of that. But what a trip. But yeah, my grandma and I did that puzzle. I mean, it was mainly me, because she was just like, I can't see what's what on here, and it all looks the same, and she was just griping about it all the time. And anytime we've done something that was kind of complicated, she'd always start saying, I'm too dumb to do this. It's like, stop it. It's like, that is literally that old man talking. Stop it. And I don't know that he necessarily was the one telling her she was dumb. I think he was just saying, what were you thinking, kind of stuff. And she translated it, because it's essentially, it goes hand in hand. I see where that connection went, but when it came out of her mouth when she was talking to herself, it was harsher than it seemed to come across when it came out of his mouth. But there was very much that underhanded insult dynamic all along. And that was the biggest thing that I think was the reason that I knew I don't want anything that any of my family had relationship wise. Screw all of that noise. Yeah. I have had a tension headache that will not quit today. Granted, I haven't taken anything for it. I haven't really eaten anything yet. I had some cards out that I pulled the other day that were really good, and I wanted to write them in that Twin Flame journal. And so I did that last night. And it was like, since I was also having these conversations with my brother and my cousin, and then my two friends, which that one didn't go as far as the other two did. It took me like till 12:30, I think, to finish doing that. And then I went to get ready for bed, and went to bed but wanted to write down everything that had happened during the day before I forgot anything. I was just like, it was like 3 o'clock, I think, when I finally went to bed. And then I woke up at 8 and fed the dogs. See, if you go to bed later, you get away with waiting a little longer on feeding them. But otherwise, as soon as you get up to have to pee or something, then they think it's time. It's like, nah. Yeah, but I don't know. You know, I fed them at 8 and then was going back to bed. And it's like, I'm definitely not ready to be awake right now. But it's also the kind of the point of in the day that I feel like, at that point, that I feel like I need to be starting on working to have some day, and I knew I wanted to do another video today, and yeah, yeah. So this is video 101, and today is actually the 12-year anniversary of a very bad decision-making time in my life. You know, I talked about when I was walking down the aisle, I had that voice in my head that was just like, no, you don't have to do this. You don't even like him, let alone love him. Why would you do this? You know, the whole time. And I just like felt like I had to. And, you know, like there was one point in the middle of the ceremony, I was just like, I was really close to wanting to turn off and walk back down the aisle the other way and leave. And it was like I was in this weird little haze, and like I had this voice telling me this is not what you're supposed to do. This is not where you're supposed to be. Don't do this. And yet I felt like I had to, and like in the confusion of what was going on in my head at one point, I wasn't paying attention to what the pastor said, and he said something about the rings, and I was like, oh yeah, here. Like ready to get to be handed them. And we ended up dropping hands, and we just stood there awkwardly until I realized, it's like, this looks stupid. It's like we're in the middle of a wedding ceremony and we're not even holding hands. Why the hell are we here? And then I was like, I grabbed his hand because like he didn't make any kind of move, and it's like he was just staring at me with this dumb look on his face, and I was like, you know, I had that voice was like, go. You can go, you can leave, you don't have to do this. It's like, yes, I do. What else am I going to do? And I felt bad because then we were in front of all of these people, and it's like just standing there and, oh yeah, this is a really bad idea. I'm not doing this. Yeah, I wish I would have done that, but I didn't. So yeah. God. You know, that relationship, I think, made it, I mean, that wasn't even really that was a situationship. And it just happened to marry the situationship. Damn it. But, you know, I mean, it actually, as I'm thinking about it, it kind of makes sense that, you know, today's the 12-year anniversary of that stupidity, and it's also very far along the unraveling process of sorting through all this mess of how I got there to begin with, and realizing all the ways my family got me there and their toxic thinking and beliefs and all that stuff. So yeah, dudes, my head hurts. I could probably go for a nap, honestly, and I probably won't, but I don't know. You know, my brother's kind of the same way at this point, you know, after I told him what I told him, and he's like, we're both just like, need some time here. But I think we need to, get together and have a chit chat. That's definitely on the agenda. Definitely. Yeah. Oh, the point that I was saying there before. I feel like, okay, there were the first relationship was the broken 4 years where I knew we weren't supposed to be, that he wasn't the one that I was going to be with. But then every time I tried to leave the situation, it didn't feel right, or somebody would say something shitty and then I'd feel really bad, so I'd go back, and we broke up like 4 times. The fourth one was the one that stuck, which goes back to that point of, it's like there's 3 things for me and then something that works finally, but I have to get the 3 out of the way and then the one that works. So, or whatever. That number's relevant for a few things, but it's also relevant because I'm pretty sure my great grandma died on March 1st. Not 100%. My aunt said she's pretty sure, but we would have to verify it. My aunt's into the genealogy stuff, so have to come up with that again. But yeah, but then the next one, thought I was gonna marry that dude, and we were together the full 4 years. 4 years and a month, technically. And the funny thing was, we dated for about a month before we decided to make it official, and we knew we didn't want to date anybody else. But, we ended up calling the anniversary of our first date as the anniversary, since we both knew from there that we didn't want to see anybody else. But then, technically, when we decided that we were together, it was December 29th for the date of the first date. January 29th was the date of deciding we were like officially together and not interested in seeing anybody else. But when all hell broke loose, okay, mind you, we kept December 29th as the anniversary. When we actually broke up officially, it was January 29th, which was the day we made the decision to be officially together. And I told him that, and he was just kind of like, because he'd forgotten about that point. But, he remembered as soon as I said it. And, that was the whole thing, though. But that was one of those things, it's like, as I look back on that, it's like, that seems like a good conclusion time, a good cutoff. And now it's the anniversary of when we broke up. So I've always had like really weird feelings about this date. And November 30th. So on the wedding planning, we went with different colors, I think, than we probably would have if it was like December 1st. So, it just feels like a seasonal shift there, from like, harvest time to Christmas time. But I feel like things would have been planned differently. But, since nothing else was at that time, it's like every time, oh God, the first anniversary that came up after the divorce went through. And mind you, when I left him, the last time was March 2019. The divorce was pushed through in July 2019 because I was so ready to be done with him, and I knew all he was going to do if we drug it out and got court involved or anything was to make us waste money and use it as an opportunity to make me look or feel crazy. I had no interest in any of that. So it's like, I will allow myself to be fucked over in this process just to get rid of him and be done with him for good. And was able to get there. So November 30th, well, going in, I think October, November still was kind of heavy, 2019. And I came to realize after we got into December that year, I had this Facebook memory that popped up and had he'd commented on one of my posts. And when I saw the picture that was next to it, it looked like he had a new girlfriend in the picture. And it's like, that I had this overwhelming sense of relief. It's like, oh, thank God, that's why I haven't heard from him. But I had like all this time where I had this anxiety of feeling like I was probably going to hear something from him, and I was really wound up about it, didn't want to hear anything. And then, as soon as it passed and then I saw that memory pop, I was like, oh, thank God. And, so that was the whole thing, and it was like sigh of relief, didn't have to worry about it anymore, kind of a thing. But yeah, it's like every time we come around to this date, it's been fuck, here we go. Just stupid. I feel, for some reason, I feel like I like this date, but hate the connection to that past memory and the thing that, oh God, if I would have walked back down the aisle and left him there, I probably would love this day, honestly. But it was one of those things, it's like, okay, like for most people that are getting married the day of, they spend time doing things like getting their hair done and all that kind of stuff, and make a day of it with their bridesmaids and all that stuff. What I did was go to it was the seminary entrance interview, and there was like a group of, I think, 8 to 12 of us, and we were there and all just kind of talking about this thing, and it's like, oh, well, maybe let's see that I'm really want to be there since I'm there on my wedding day. And there were some comments but honestly, what that was like, I probably could have, I don't know if I would have had to delay going in if I would have not gone to that date, but I wanted to go and show my dedication to this educational endeavor, and really just avoid thinking about the rest of the day and what was getting ready to happen, because I didn't want to I didn't want any part of it, and yet I was trying to stay disconnected from myself, because if I really sat with that point, I don't think I would have ended up going through with it. I don't think I could have made it to the ceremony if I hadn't had something to distract me that morning. So yeah. But now it's just like, how do you do anything to make the date mean something different? Because July 30th was the time, or was the date that the divorce was finalized, and I was officially done with his ass. So that was a good day. But honestly, I feel like this is kind of a good way to do it, because I made it to my 100 videos yesterday, so now this does feel like there's a little bit of a shift for what we're getting to for the next phase, kind of a thing. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and go home and maybe take a nap. I don't know, my head hurts. Maybe take a Tylenol. That might be my way to go. Yeah, there's a whole lot of tension today, or tension headache today. Because like there's not really a whole lot else that's been going on. Like I came out here and walked my dogs, talked to my brother for a while. I was gonna watch Gracie earlier, and then they ended up having to postpone going to visit my grandpa at the hospital until after an appointment this afternoon, so that fell through. But yeah. Anyway, he sent me a message asking me to confirm the room number, so hopefully he hasn't had to revert to talking to my mom. And I'll go ahead and wrap this up so I can respond to that one since it's my brother. As always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.